What's up, everybody? Mark with Kardavox Academy here, and today I'm taking a break from my normal sludgy, nasty metal that I check out, and moving into something maybe a little less sludgy and nasty. Now, it is Slaughter to Prevail, which, is heavy, but baby metal, which is sometimes heavy in its own way. I'm not too familiar with baby metal. Usually anything involving baby metal or anything like that is handled by the other personality on the channel, Verona, who is our clean singing coach. But I, Mark, am here for all your harsh vocal needs. Essentially, if this is your first time to the channel, I am a full-time harsh metal vocal instructor. I teach people to do how to stuff like safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a vocal analysis of song 3, Baby Metal and Slaughter to Prevail. I don't know exactly why it's just called song 3. Let me scooch over here. Sorry for my wrinkly shirt. I'm in dad mode to the max right now. It's laundry day. This is all I had. But it looks kind of nice. I don't mind it. Anyway, let's just do this. I got a lesson in about 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes. So let's go. Baby Metal, Slaughter to Prevail, song 3. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. So first of all, like I said, I'm not too familiar with baby metal. I don't usually listen to a lot of baby metal stuff, not for any particular reason, but right now I have almost 80 students, and so I'm oftentimes listening to the music they're working on or the music they're taking inspirations for. I don't really listen to music for my own enjoyment much these days, right? I'm in the kitchen cooking, you know what I'm saying? So this is new to me. Maybe this is not new to all of you, but I didn't know that the three of them, I can't remember their names, I didn't know that 3 of these women screamed, right? And this is really cool. And it sounds good too, right? So essentially, well, even before that, this is such like we have a very Slaughter to Prevail riff opening up the song, but we have the camera angles and the shall we say panache of baby metal that is meshing together. It's a little bit jarring, but listen, I listen to black metal that sounds like it was recorded through a piece of aluminum foil in the middle of the woods. Okay, so contrasting dissonant sounds are not a problem for me. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm saying it's a bit of a slap to the face. It's waking me up, that's for sure. But it's really cool too. So I want to talk about the vocals that they are doing. So these fall under the classification of false chord vocals, right? So if you are relatively new to the metal vocal world, when we talk about metal vocals, traditionally, not necessarily the most correctly, but traditionally, for many, many years, we talked about vocals as being either false chord or either fry vocals, right? And fry vocals not meaning fry register, right? It can be a bit of a confusing name. But when we're talking false chord vocals, generally speaking, and nowadays we know that there's so much more than that, right? There's a lot more than that. That's becoming the common understanding, But we can use our epiglottis to create rattly sounds, the roof of the mouth. When we have sounds like this, false chord vocals, essentially the way I like to describe false chord vocalization or false chord screams, which by the way is kind of my thing. I do teach fry students as well and epiglottal screaming students, but because I do a lot of false chord, that's kind of become a little bit of my niche, I suppose. But when we're creating false chord distortion, essentially what we are doing is we are utilizing the tissues above our vocal folds to create vibrations in the airstream that do not require but can include our vocal folds. We don't need the vocal folds to create the distortion. Now, what I hear with them is I hear multiple layers. My first thought is to say 3 layers, but that might just be because there's 3 of them, right? But there are certainly multiple layers, and there's some panning and processing. This is not cheating. This is just solid, normal music production. I think their vocals sound really well produced in this section. And one thing that I'm noticing is that you can hear little bits of pitch underneath the scream. We're going to listen. I'm sure they're going to do this part again. This is not necessarily a bad thing when we're creating false chord distortion. One thing I've found over the years from teaching so many people false chord is that different people are going to have to approach it in slightly different ways depending on the shape and size of their vocal tract, right? Generally speaking, though, we want to drive this primarily with airflow and a relaxed throat. So a basic, no bells and whistles false chord vocalization is usually going to sound something like this. Hey, hey, I, whoa. But some people may have a little bit of true chord connection underneath, not creating the gritty sound, but adding a little bit of a concise stream of air, right? So you might get something more that's like, hey, hey, I, whoa. Not necessarily a bad thing. We're going to go more into technique and exercises and things later, but for anybody who might not know these terms or might not know this is a very good example of a strong foundational false chord technique being used really well. And they're doing it, like I said, I really like the way that it's panned and opened up, because sometimes it can be difficult to make like a foundational stream sit in a mix well, but this sounds really great. I'm not a producer, so if anybody has thoughts on that, please put your thoughts in the comments below. This is just what I know from standing, being in the recording booth and watching somebody produce my vocals and being like, what are you doing? Oh, okay, interesting. Let's keep going though. I'm gonna pause it again real quick here because, they're doing a really good job of making these false chord vocals work. And I want to tell you about this in a very specific way. So essentially, like I said earlier, different people kind of have to, and this is very true with pretty much any type of singing or screaming technique, is that yes, we have like the quote unquote textbook way that it's done and the way that it sounds, but human bodies have variation amongst them. And so there may be certain areas where we have to change things and compensate. And it doesn't mean that person is having to do a different false chord. It's just, I think it's very interesting. I really love how you can line up 10 people and they all do a false chord, and most of the time, all 10 of them will sound kind of different. So what I'm going to point out here are not flaws, they're enjoyable variations in the voice. One thing I'm hearing is a really good control, a really good opening of the pharyngeal space, the very back of the mouth, right? This is something that is really very, very helpful for a lot of metal vocals, especially in your mid and low range, right? But there's a way to do it that can be helpful and a way that can do it that can be kind of detrimental, right? Now, they're doing it in a way that's like really nice and powerful. And what this does is it adds some body, it adds some width to the tone of the scream, right? So for example, if I again do a false chord tone, and I'm just going to do a false chord tone with a vocal tract shape that I would use when I speak. So I'm just going to say, hey, but I'm going to do it with false chord. And you're going to hear that it sounds like false chord, but it's not that impressive. It's just like nothing spicy about it. So, hey, 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 like, all right, that's cool, I guess. It sounds like an ingredient versus a dish, right? So what if, and this is an old school exercise from clean singing, right? What if I yawn it out, right? We can think we're there, but there's one thing we need to change, because what if I take that yawn and I use that vocal tract shape? You're going to hear that it's not going to be exactly what we want. So I'm here. Like it's getting deeper, but it's much more difficult for me to control. And I feel a lot of rumbling right behind my vocal cords, right? They don't have that overly darkened sound though. So what's the difference? Well, this is one thing I like to do. I like to take this yawn Okay. And instead of a yawn, I like to think of it as like I call them like a bouquet breath. Because imagine like holding a bouquet of flowers and going, right? That smells so nice. Or like baking bread. You walk by a bakery. So I don't have, I have, It is okay to lower your larynx. It's okay to use your larynx when you do screams. I personally am a big fan of doing as much resonant work as you can do here first, and then using this a little bit. That helps us keep control and keep the sensation of the distortion in a place that's more comfortable and healthy, right? So, for example, what this may, what this would sound like. So again, here's bland and boring. Hey, right? And again, there's just going to be baseline sounds. Hey, hey. Now I'm going to say, hey, hey, hi, hi. A little bit of dropping is okay, but we don't want to do that. Hey, hi, hey, I, whoa. I mean, one sounds clearly better than the other. And I'm hearing a super open and a super well-controlled, super open space and a really well-controlled air. I'm not even going to cut that stutter out because I'm too lazy. I hear very open pharyngeal space and a nice, even supported airflow, right? Which is no surprise because Baby Metal's been around singing for a long time. Let's keep going. So this, I love this song for a couple reasons, right? It's like, as far as like sound of songs, it may not be exactly what I would listen to a lot of the time on my own. Although I will say, like, if I was working out or if I was like getting some chores done, this would be a top choice. But I like this song for a couple of reasons. Number one, I really like the way it's produced. Like, even though like compositionally it's a little bouncy and bubbly for me, like I listen to a lot of black metal, I listen to a lot of like death metal and things. I also listen to like a lot of folk music. There's nothing wrong with this song. Like the production, some people may disagree. I love where everything's sitting. It's thumpy, it's strong, it's powerful, it's clean, but and maybe even a little bit over clean. I don't know. Sometimes people get a little, they're like, oh, it's too clean. I don't know. I think this production sounds great. Another reason I like it is because it is a really good song. Like, listen, if you are out there trying to learn false chord vocals, this song is a great song to practice to. Not just because this is a great example of what you can do with false chord vocals. No surprise, we have Alex Terrible, we have false chord vocals. That's how it works. But because it is a good example of how you can make false chord vocals very interesting with very little, right? So what do I mean by this? Well, Alex Terrible jumps out and he's doing something very, very interesting. Something that's not, again, this won't be a big surprise to a lot of people who are like in the metal vocal world, but if you're new to it or you listen to a lot of metal, but you haven't like really delved into, look at that screenshot. What a great screenshot. Look at that face. It's hilarious. That's a party face. Like, yeah. Anyway, so to some people, this may not be that big of a surprise, but to other people, it may be, right? He jumps out and he has this deep, powerful, resonant scream. How is he doing that? Great question, right? Well, a lot of people, what they would want to do is they would want to pull their larynx down really, really far. Now, I want to be clear. What I'm going to show you is, I've never spoken to Alex directly. I DM'd him, like we talked over DMs like very briefly 3 years ago. So I haven't had a chance to pick his brain about his vocals. What I'm going to tell you about how he's doing this is a culmination of, it's a combination of how I would do it. So there is some internal bias there for sure. In addition to that, it's from what I've seen on his Instagram and in his videos. So some people out there will do this differently and they come up with a very similar sound to him. That's part of what makes metal vocals cool, is that as long as it sounds cool and it's comfortable and not hurting you, you're doing it right. You know what I mean? I'm very loose with my definitions of like my qualifications of right and wrong when it comes to metal vocals. Oftentimes my students will be like, oh, I have this sound and it's really cool, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. And I'm like, well, you said it sounds really cool. So that's one thing. Is it hurting your voice? No. Does it change the quality of your voice? No. Do you feel any muscular strain? No. Then it's right. It's right. Well, it's not what we were working on. Who cares? Sounds sick as hell. You know what I mean? He's got this, but where's that resonance coming from? A very common way that we can do that is either curling the tongue behind the teeth for a light tunneling effect. Wow, listen to that. I'm not having to drop my larynx for that at all, right? Again, dropping your larynx is okay, but I like working up here because it's easier. And I'm lazy. I'm a lazy piece. I'm really lazy. I like doing things the easy way, right? So, or similarly, we can lay our tongue on the bottom of our teeth, and do it that way. If I take a false chord, or right? At the end there, I lowered a little bit, but predominantly I didn't need to. Oftentimes when we are creating these really deep tones, and when Alex is creating these really deep tones, we're working more with, I'm going to use these terms very loosely, timbre rather than pitch, right? If you know, one way that I've heard timbres described that I really like is the way we can make the same pitch sound different. So if I go, that was the same note, but some had the illusion of being lower and some had the illusion of being higher. Well, when we do false chord vocals, we generally don't have a lot of pitch in them unless we're intentionally going for like a Zelly from Paleface or Matt Honeycutt from Kublai Khan type of vibe. So what if I do that? I mess with the timbre using my tongue, my lips, the back of my mouth. I don't really worry about my larynx too much. If it wants to bounce around, fine, but my mind is here, right? Right? I get a lot of difference. Oops, sorry, my alarm's going off. And you can hear that if I just hold like a one sounds like more like a low and one sounds more like a mid. So if we take this, tunnel it a little bit, throw some attitude on it. Like you heard him, like there was a little bit of a voice break at the beginning of when he said baby metal. He didn't say baby metal. He said something closer to baby metal, baby metal. Right? And it sounds really cool. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. Also, the three of them, they're great. Their false chord vocals sound awesome. Like really good screams. Legitimately, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be sleeping on baby metal. Maybe I should be like actually making more of an effort to keep up with their music. Let's keep going though. This is very cool stuff. Yeah, that makes us thumpy. I really like that. So let's round this out here real quick. I'll turn this off. Let's round this out real quick. A very fun song. Excellent practice song. Maybe not like my thing super duper, but like that's the thing, you know, that's one of the best. That's one thing I love about this job, this thing I do, reaction analysis videos and teaching, is that even if I hear a song where it's like, yeah, maybe that's not my type, there's always something to find to enjoy, right? And that's very much the type of person I am. If I go to a restaurant that I'm not that interested in, I can find something to love. And I think that's part of the reason I've stuck with this for so long, because a lot of it's very frequent that I cover music that I wouldn't personally listen to, but I still come away from it being like, dang, there were some parts of that I really enjoyed. It's like this job has really broadened my horizons. But okay, Mark, you've been talking about this false chord stuff nonstop, but how do I start it? Great question. Okay. There are two primary methods for starting your fall. There are a lot of different exercises, but I'm going to give you the two most common ones. I did not create any of these, but they're the ones I use the most because they are tried and true. Okay. The first one is a little sigh grunt. Now, a lot of times people do this one and they feel like they're off track because it doesn't feel or sound right. Well, of course it doesn't feel or sound right. It's just the baseline sound, right? If you were baking bread, you wouldn't take a spoonful of flour and eat it and be like, I suck at baking bread. You'd be like, I'd be like, whoa, calm down. You're eating raw flour, of course. There's a process. The starting sound with this method doesn't really sound quite right, but we can use it to get where we want to go. So I'm just going to sigh. I've been doing vocals for roughly 17 years, been teaching for 5. And when I make this sigh, I'm not really going to be using any specific technique. There's no trick. There's nothing, right? I'm literally just going to, Now, because I've been doing vocals for so long, it is like, you know, I am a little predispositioned to creating that rumble, but you'll often, if you're having trouble with that, you will often find that you'll accidentally do it throughout your day without realizing it, right? Now, what you're going to do is is the distortion sitting too low? Fine, no problem. Is it a little bit scratchy? Who cares? No problem for now, right? But I'm going to take this. If it makes you feel like you have to cough and sputter and choke, okay, that's a problem. But I'm talking about just like a light little tickle behind the tongue, not a big deal, right? If it's changing the sound of your voice or making your voice feel swollen or making it so you can't go woo, it sounds like woo, well, then that's a problem. I'm just talking about mild sparkles, okay? Now what I'm doing is I'm going to take this, I'm going to keep it a sigh. I don't care if I run out, I'm going to run out of air in 3 seconds. Half a second. I don't care. I don't care at this point, right? It doesn't matter. So, I'm going to start turning this into hey. Hey. Now, while I do these hays, I'm going to pay attention to what I feel in the mask here. Behind my nose, in my cheekbones, roof of my mouth, anywhere here. Do I feel any moments where it feels rumbly and buzzy up there? If so, pay attention to that. Oh, there it was. And what you'll do, this will take weeks, by the way. When you find that space, you're going to hold on to it for just a second. And once you have that, you've got an open door to a lot of really cool vocals. Obviously, I just took what's going to take you weeks and put it into a small space. But that's one method, right? And that's a very small overview. I go over all of this stuff. I have an online course, False Chord Fundamentals. It's the basics of getting a scream down, right? The second way that you can do is you can make a noise called Kargria, throat singing. And if you're having trouble making that, 2 of the most successful cues I have found are revving a motorcycle. Don't think about Kargria. Think about the motorcycle, right? Literally put your hands like this and go. Continue that. Don't change it. Do it for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Say, Mark, what's the next step? The next step is to do it for 3 or 4 more days. That's the next step, right? So you have to build coordination. Okay, now you're gonna do the same thing. Pay attention up here. Are there any times when it feels kind of behind my nose, in my cheekbones, on my hard palate? If there is, pay attention to that and try to access that a little bit more frequently. Now, of course, in lessons, we would be much more detailed. We talk about breath, tongue position, jaw. This is something I'm trying to scooch into the last 4 minutes before my next lesson starts. So it's just a nugget, right? But if I take this, right? Find that space over time, start holding on to it. And there's your Kargria, right? Once you have Kargria down, which this is actually it takes a little bit longer sometimes, but it's actually my favorite method. I'm going to take that And I'm gonna start chewing on it with my like I'm gonna imagine I'm chewing on it with my front teeth. While I do that, again, this is weeks of time. Okay. While I do that, I'm just gonna start being breathier intentionally. I'm going to let this be breathier. I'm going to let myself run out of air faster. It's like I'm going yum 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 A B C D E F G. And that'll get you started, right? Now, I know this video is very quick, but I'm actually quite thankful. There are 3 songs I want to do: New Shadow of Intent, this, and then New Electric Callboy. And I'm really glad I did this because I feel like lately the screaming videos I've done on the channel have been a lot of very advanced stuff. And I don't want to say that what anybody is doing here is easy or doesn't take a ton of work. You know, that's not it at all, but this is an easier sound to start with than a lot of what you're going to hear in other deathcore and death metal songs, right? So this is an excellent song for any false chord vocalist, you know, new or old, to practice along to. But again, that's it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out for this quick between lessons video. If you like the content, like, share, and subscribe. KardavoxAcademy.com if you want to learn vocals. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.